Welcome to Raging Bullets, a comics fan podcast, Season 2, Episode 773.
From the great outskirts of Cleveland to wherever you may roam, Sean and Jim thank you for listening to the Raging Bullets podcast show.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the Minister of More Gooder. Jim swears he was supposed to make a cameo in this book, but took a wrong turn at eternity. And of course, he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to talk about Turtles of Grayskull, issues number 1 and 2. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
I use the search function, and I just typed in the word turtles. And not only do you get multiple Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic books, but there's also the action figures, the Turtles of Grayskull action figures, and all the variations on the Turtles. So if you're looking for some cool action figures, here's a neat place to look. But we also have Universal Monsters versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figure line. We have Shredder as Dracula, and of course, Splinter as Van Helsing. And I'm like, oh man, this is some cool stuff. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I also did a search, and I did a search for Teenage Mutant Compendium, just to kind of get a list of what compendiums they have in stock right now. And they have a number of the compendiums. They're $150 regularly, 35% off, only $97.50. This is a great way to collect the early exploits. They also have the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Omnibus hardcover, which is $100 regularly, 35% off, only $65. So there's a great chance for you to get all different kinds of storytelling. They also have smaller versions of these where they're, various trade paperback collections and things like that. So there's something to fit any budget if you're looking to get more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle storytelling. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics. This episode, we're going to be talking about the first of a two-part discussion around Turtles of Grayskull. The script is by Tim Seeley, the art by Freddie E. Williams II, color art by Andrew Dahlhaus, letters by And World Design, standard cover artist Freddie E. Williams II with Andrew Dahlhaus, variant cover B artists are Stan Sakai with Emi Fuji, the variant cover C artist is Alexis Zerti, variant D and G artists Mike Ruth, Electable Comics, variant cover E artist Matthias Baraga, Things from Another World, variant cover F and J artists Raymond Gay, Collector Cave, variant cover I artist is Chris Campana, Jeff Comics. And this is published by Dark Horse. Interesting. This one's had an interesting and rich history as far as this one goes. You and I had a chance to talk to Freddie about this a while ago, and this was unfortunately one that almost didn't come to fruition. And I'm glad that this came back around because this one's kind of a no-brainer to me.
Oh, God, yeah.
What is your history? Before we I kind of jump into this one heavily, what is your history with, why don't we do He-Man first? What is your history with He-Man?
Okay. Well, He-Man, when it came out, I had the action figures. Wasn't too big in on the action figures. I had probably like a dozen or so. And it's funny you say, I'm not that big. I only had a dozen. The amount of stuff.
Back at that time, how much more were there?
More than that.
For He-Man?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm not knocking. And by the way, I want to be very clear. I'm not knocking it. It's just I watched the cartoon. I'm like, where did they get more than a dozen from?
Okay. Well, here, hold on. Let me go through my head. I had He-Man, Man-at-Arms, Skeletor, Faker, Lockjaw, the Many Faces or whatever that guy's name was, Ram Man. So, okay, I only had about 7.
Okay.
So, and again, and you think about all the different side characters, each one of them had an action figure. Plus,
Well, you didn't have like Tila and Sorceress and things like that, which were
Tila, Sorceress. I didn't have any of the vehicles. I didn't have Battle Cat. I didn't have any of those like accessories. And it had like accessories. It had Castle Grayskull.
Oh yeah, it was cool too. Wait, Castle Grayskull was cool.
Were awesome.
Yeah,
those were awesome. And I had a couple of the action figures, and I used to intermix all my action figures together. So I'd have the Mego superheroes with He-Man, and I had the Warlord action figure. So I had him with them, and they were all a little bit variation on different sizes, but I didn't care. You have a massive, I had the ultimate beat up there, and it was fun.
He-Man came out.
This was back when we were kids, so this was our elementary age. Is when
wasn't it middle school? Wasn't it like 7th and 8th grade? Like
I thought it was 6th grade.
Maybe.
I was remembering I was in Upson Elementary School when I had these. Yeah, that's what I'm remembering. Now maybe again, my memory is not the greatest in the world, but again, to me, and then when the cartoon came out, I watched the cartoon because I thought that was awesome. I really enjoyed the cartoon as a kid, and still to this day, I could sit down and watch He-Man cartoon, and you see some of the campiness in it, but you're like, oh, that's cool. I like it. It's kind of like when we watch Batman 66. Yeah, you overlook some of the camp to it, and you enjoy what's being told. And I like how they always try to put in a message in there, and it's the heroes would win, and sometimes the heroes would win because the villains were stupid. And me currently, I don't like those stories, but with these, I always get a pass because of the nostalgia to my childhood. So
it was different.
I will sit down and watch and read a He-Man story any day of the week.
Yeah, He-Man was different. That was one of the things. I had He-Man, I had Battle Cat. I didn't have much else of He-Man. Wasn't a desire thing. It was just one of those things where I think I got my first He-Man in 7th or 8th grade. That was the reason why. And it was interesting because I was in that weird era where should I want this? Should I not want this? Because I'm older now. And it was before like understanding that like these cool sculpts and things like that could be collector. Like, I mean, they could be displayed and really enjoyed that way. They were cool figures. I remember that being a thing. I loved the cartoon like you. I really enjoyed watching it. It was one of those that, it had all the camp pieces, but it worked. I think when the writing kind of matches the style and you understand what the show is, you start to get into it. And it was a very consistent show as far as what it was trying to deliver. And you're right, it had that little message at the end. And I didn't remember the messages until I think I saw it on Instagram recently or something like that. They had a rotating through. I'm like, oh yeah, this thing had messages at the end. I didn't remember any of that at all. But I remember liking the characters quite a bit. I liked the universe. It was eye-catching. And at that age, for it to kind of draw me in the way that it did was something that I think was really a testament. So I have a real soft spot for them. Now, what about the Turtles? What about the Turtles for you?
So Turtles came out our high school and college.
Yeah.
So I was well beyond getting the action figures, but I wanted them. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I remember seeing them going, I wish I was a kid again because I would have all of these things. And they just were the coolest thing in the world. And I 100% wanted all of them. I mentioned on the show my third brother, Angelo. He's my brother Bill's friend who became a brother.
Sure.
He actually read the original Turtle. He has the original, and he still has them, I think. The original Turtle comic from Eastman, right?
And Laird, yeah.
Yeah. So he had the original comic from them. So it was funny when the Turtle cartoons and the movies and all that stuff came out. I remember him saying, "Here, read these. This is the original Turtle. Read these." And it was a dramatic difference. But I'll be honest with you, I love both universes. I love both of the darker side that they originally were and the fun Cowabunga, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I love both stories. And again, with this one, I never got any of the action figures, even though I 100% wanted them. But I didn't get them because, again, we were in high school when this came out, and I didn't want to be that kid who collect the dolls in high school. I had enough problems, being labeled a dork and a geek. I wasn't going to add to it, but again, it's one of those things I wish I had, because now I would love to have a wall where I just have the action figures up on, and I still, when I'm at cons and when I'm out and I see these toys, and because I walk through the toy aisle. And I walk and I look and I see all these things. I'm like, oh man, I wish I was a kid again. Here's why I wish I was a kid, so I could get these toys.
I agree. It was a good era. The cartoon, that was another one where the cartoon I thought was really, really good. It was fun. And the movies were good. The original movies they kicked off. I mean, there was a time, and the game, actually I want to talk about the video games.
Yeah.
So Ninja Turtles had this great 4-player video game that was put out at the time. I think it was Konami that created it. But I mean, they've re-released it many times, but they've also made new versions based off of just how cool that game was. They just released one recently that was a really fun game. So it's a property that really is malleable. It's done very well. Came off as a black and white indie comic at first, and it was really, really trendy because it was a black and white indie comic. And then it's turned into this cartoon series and film and video game, and it was a thing. It still is. Did you read Last Ronin? Did you?
Oh God, I loved Last Ronin.
So good. Yes.
That was absolutely brilliant story. And if you're listening to this and you haven't read it, pick it up and read it.
Yeah.
100%. That gets just complete full. Oh my God, is that an awesome story? And again, I'll tell you right now, I didn't figure out who the Last Ronin was until they revealed it. And I loved how they did that. Because sometimes you can, I hit so I could not tell who the Last Ronin was until they give us the reveal. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I love that.
They've collected the original comics and they've collected the IDW series in these compendium editions that are available. You can get them both physically and digitally. And it's well worth seeking out. It's really, really good comics. So that leads us to this, Turtles of Grayskull, which was something that I know got kind of stuck for a while, just in the fact that there was that Kevin Smith animated series that came out on Netflix, and they weren't quite sure how to incorporate this type of thing in at that point in time, which to me, if you look at what happened, I think there's a template for if it's quality and you're putting it out, people are going to get it. An example would be the Spider-Man. We had that, the Spider-Man where there was a crossover between the 3 Spider-Mans. What was that? No Way Home? Is that the one? Or am I thinking the right name? But at the same time, we had that really cool Spider-Man animated movie that came out, which was, focused on Miles, but it had different versions of Peter Parker in it. If it's good, people will flock to it and they will enjoy it. I think we kind of insult the audience by thinking like, oh, you can't do any multiple universes or things like that. No, I think so. It's good like this is. You can get away with it and do it, and it will actually help both. I think that increased nothing but excitement for Spider-Man. And to me, this creates nothing but excitement for the 2 properties. The toys for this. I went and looked on Amazon. I'm like, there's got to be toys for this, right? And I want them. I need them. Because I think they're display pieces. And I mean, they look super, super cool. Because they look like they belong in the He-Man line. They look like they belong in the Turtles line. They just work. This is like a mashup that like needed to happen. And for this being a toy, especially He-Man being a toy-driven property, it's like, duh. And the mashups are awesome.
Oh, God, yeah. Again, it's, one of the things that, talking toys, again, these 2 fit so well. Talking the characters, they fit in each other's universe. It is absolutely, this was the no-brainer that this had to happen. And this was one of those things I was, because when we talked to Freddie about it, maybe not happen, we're like, how can this not, this right here is just absolutely perfect. And again, this creative team, yes, we're very biased because Freddie's our friend, but he is an absolute brilliant artist, and he was 100% the correct choice on this art.
Wait a minute. Style. I don't care whether I know him or not. Look at that cover.
I know. This is the absolute...
That is outstanding. Yes. It doesn't matter whether you know the guy or not. It's like, look at that cover.
Yeah.
That's just, it's so good it's wrong.
Yes.
It's like, I really, really love how that cover looks. What's amazing about it? It's got the mashup is obviously there, and we get to see this great. But when you do a mashup where you're taking the best elements of both and combining them, but not losing what makes the original property cool, that's where it works. And this does that. But my gosh, the artistry of this, the penciling, the inking, and the color work of this, oh my gosh, does that cover pop? This was an example of turning every page and being, I want that as a poster. I want that as a poster. I want that as a poster. And when that's meshed with really great storytelling, you have got me. This is one that I've wanted to do for quite some time. And I'm glad in our rotation of, kind of doing DC Marvel independent, we got to this one. It's just strange to call Dark Horse count. I don't know. That we almost need like a fourth category when you're talking about Dark Horse, because Dark Horse is a giant. But seeing this, I mean, this is just really, really gorgeous. And
oh God, yeah. And again, we keep saying talking mashup, just just looking at the cover, you obviously you've got Leonardo with more of a He-Man style. You've got Donatello with the Man-at-Arms style.
Yeah.
You've got Raph with the Ram Man style, which I was like, that kind of fits. But the one that front and center is Mikey with the flowing locks. I'm like, oh, that is just absolutely brilliant. It's fun. Really cool and just absolutely amazing. This, I always talk about that art style I call, classic comic with a modern influence.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's hard for me to explain it. Look at this cover. This is what I'm talking about right here. This is the very definition of what I love in a comic book artwork, where you can see it is a comic book, but it has those details in the facial, the muscle flexes, the various body mechanics. The grin on Mikey's face has me laughing every time I look at it. And it's absolutely, again, this is the artwork that I love, and it's, again, one of the things that made this book so much fun for me was the art, not just but again, the story that they told in it, as well as this artwork. I'm flipping through this and I'm thinking, again, I'm going back to when I was a kid going, I want this action figure. I want that. I want to have Leonardo as He-Man. I want to have Mikey as, with the flowing locks, I wanted to have these toys.
Two things I want. I want an animated film off of this, and I want a game,
yes.
and I want a game off of this.
Yes.
Today's animation, with the fact that they're really playing with animation and doing some really artistically sound, clever things, what they really need to take a look at is this artwork and say, how can we do this? How can we make it look like this animated? And I would say the same thing for the game. I mean, in and of itself, I want to play as these characters. Mm-hmm. And I want the mashup of the characters, because I just think that there's money to be made here. And I hope they're looking at this and seeing, I hope the toys are selling well. I don't know what that looks like, or, what those numbers look like. And I'm 1000% starting with the comic. I'm hoping the comic's selling well, but I feel like all this goes together. You know what I mean? Like, you want the comic selling well, you want the toys selling well, you want to lead the animation, you want to lead the games, you want to lead the other stuff. The message should be sent that, like, why didn't you let this go sooner? There's money to be made here. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what companies are looking for, right? We're looking for the entertainment that this gives. But my gosh, this is like gold. The first page, when you're like flipping over in Manhattan on Earth, I love this because we're getting some establishment of let's take a look at the Turtles world. I love that this is a timey-wimey story, and it very quickly starts leading to that. I love wacky time travel, wacky time universe messings. Doctor Who's one of my favorite shows. This kind of stuff is totally up my alley, and I love how that they drop you into the mess, and we're left to start figuring out what's going on.
Oh, God, yeah. I'll tell you, it was funny because you mentioned timey-wimey, and on top of timey-wimey, some brilliant swerves. Mm-hmm. Because when we're first dropped into this mess, and we're first given some background, I'm thinking, okay, that's going to be the main story. No, it's not, guys. Surprise. We got a change for you. I love that, because when we first started, I'm like, wait, and I'm like, okay, they're explaining it. Oh, okay. Because I was expecting, the story that they tell, I was expecting that to be like the whole first issue or, and then after that it would go, oh no, that was just a couple pages. They've got more. And I love that. And also going into, again, I'm going to go into artwork again, but not just how cool Splinter looks there, but just the lair. Just a little background stuff, the detail that goes into this sewer home that they have. And it's all just background stuff. And it very easily could have been overlooked or done secondary stuff, gotten lazy. But, as we've said before, Freddy's not lazy when it comes to his artwork. You look at the background, you look at the stuff that's hidden in the shadows that's not completely clear and visible, but you still see the detail of the pipework. You still see the different electrical ducts. You see all that extra stuff that he puts in there. It's like, I'm like, oh God, I love this book.
Well, we see Splinter in the foreground and you see April in the background. Here's what I really loved. The whole underground layer and the way April's drawn and everything, the sense of depth. I know it's kind of a weird thing to say, but I love when comics can give you, the 3D feel where you feel like everything's scaled appropriately. And it just gives you this sense of this is big. This is a cool area. I really love those little details as well. So many fine details in the layer. And that's something that when you get that stuff right, it's magic. It just works really, really well. And the color work in this is spectacular. Like this is a story where the color just really understands the story that's being told. There's a partnership here that's clearly they understand what they're trying to accomplish together. It's true in the dialogue. It's true in the art. It's true in the color work. This is a team. And when you get that, you get something special. This is special. Yes. And I really, really dig that piece of it. But the depth piece really struck me, which isn't something that I always, you don't hear me say that, drop that one a lot. But I thought that was something that really was cool.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned colors because, again, I'm gushing on Freddy's work, but also the coloring is absolutely brilliant as well. It pops where it needs to pop. It's got some really cool shading. Like, when you flip the page and you go into the turtles and you see, the green skin of the turtles has got multiple layers, multiple kind of like, shadowing, but also tint to them. A turtle isn't just pure green color.
Yeah.
There's the variations. Just like, everybody's skin color isn't just one solid color. There's always variations on it. And I love the fact that they put that into the turtles as well, within the little bit of contrast and, just to kind of give them some depth to them, some growth. And I love, again, when we see the turtles in the, in Eternia, again, how deep and how full that laboratory is, where they're actually communicating back with them. This is a really cool, just again, visually, my art read through is just as fun as the other read throughs.
Speaking of the art read through, when you take a look at the back of each issue, there is the character studies that Freddy does beforehand. It's really cool to see because the turtles, to me, everything you're saying is about the different variations on color and things like that that stands out. But I would also go, facial features. The turtles, when you really understand the characters, their personalities, and you bring them about in the artwork, they stand out as being very, very interesting and very, very engaging, to look at. This is important, too, when you've got characters that have transcended multiple pieces of media. This is something, it's definitely a labor of love, and you can see it in the artwork, the fact that this is somebody who really likes these characters. And I feel that as a reader, where I'm like, oh, I want to read more. Stuff like this does exactly what it's supposed to do. It makes me want to read. I shout out at the beginning these compendiums of the other work. Stuff like this draws me to that. Yeah. That's why I'm shouting it out. It's these type of, and that's what this is supposed to do. It's supposed to get you interested in both He-Man, the Masters of the Universe line. It's supposed to get you involved in the Turtles line. Boy, this is a victory with it. I love, too, the sense of visual effects, where we have got magic as far as being ways of communicating between different locations. And I love the effect where there's like a sheen over the characters like Splinter and April, you can see that the magical effect is there's a different sort of, they're not as clear as the people as our turtles who are in the foreground or we're in there with them. I love when they do stuff like that, because one of the things I like is when it feels like I'm looking through that. And I can see that from just the way that it's almost like a filter was put over there. And I love stuff when it looks cinematic and that those visual effects are achieved. And I really enjoy that part of this. Like you mentioned attention to detail before, and I think that is something with each page turn. It's something that I'm really appreciating with this is the attention to detail. This is why this artwork just stands out to me.
Yeah, and again, also attention on detail. Look at the story being developed and the story being told.
Oh, yes.
Again, that's something else I love because, you have the initial pages before the turtles get there. You have that nice little friendly banter going on between April and Splinter. And then the turtles jump in, and then you go back to Splinter and April. Splinter's like, boys, are you okay? And like, oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, you probably worried about us. No, we're fine. And I love just that, again, you get that little moments of just the story that has nothing to do with, He-Man or the Turtles. It's just a father looking out for his son. And I loved when they're doing that little banter going back and forth and talking about how Leo's dry. I'm not dry as a mouthful of cinnamon, bro. Just that look between Splinter and April. They're okay. Just that look between the two of them. I loved those little kind of details. Again, there's so much to these characters than just the fun side. There is a 100% fun side to Turtles, 100% fun side to He-Man. There's always been that fun side, but each of them have their own little bit of depth they've put into the characters. And I love the fact that this story, we're getting the depth. You talk about with Transformers, they're more than meets the eye. Well, same thing goes on with the Turtles, same thing goes on with He-Man. Yeah, they're fun action toy lines, but when you get a creator who actually puts in real story behind the characters, real growth of the characters, you get some neat stuff that happens. I remember watching from the He-Man cartoon when his mom revealed to He-Man that she knew all along he was He-Man.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and I still remember, oh, that was cool. This whole time she knew, and it was just the really cool moment, and I remember, again, this is remembering back from the 80s. I remember the mom slid Adam the sword, cut him a distraction so he could get away and turn into He-Man. And then later she's like, what? You don't think I recognize my own son? I loved seeing that moment, going, oh, that is so cool. This whole time she knew. That is awesome. I love those kind of moments in a funny, cartoon that's there to promote action figures. But I love that they did that.
It works in a Superman way, just in the sense that how do they not know it's Adam?
Exactly.
It's like, I don't know. Like, it's not like there's a big just change that goes on. It's not like Billy Batson and Captain Marvel, where you got this little kid that all of a sudden becomes this big guy. No, they look like pretty much the same guy, just one's a little more jacked. So that would lead to questions. What you mentioned storytelling with this before, and one of the things that's really cool to note is the fact that we don't know what's happened here.
Yeah.
We just, we're seeing them in, He-Man, armor. We don't know why. We don't know where they've gotten to. That hasn't been revealed yet, because even as they're trying to explain things to Splinter, they don't have the time to go into depth. I like the mystery. It's one of those things where, as it's unfolding, this first issue in particular, this is an example of where you really want to give this one an arc, actually read all 4 issues together to see what it does. I really enjoy when stories lead you and you're like, stick around. We're going to fill you in on what's going on here. And you wait, and you're going to think you know what's going on, and then we're going to mess with you.
I tell you, that's the thing that was so brilliant about this story being told. Because we get this really cool moment. Then they flip through, and it's, them bringing Splinter up to speed what's going on, but also it's bringing all of us up to speed.
Yeah.
1-page power spread that shows how the turtles got to eternity, and even explain why they stayed there. I love the fact that the reason the turtles stayed in eternity is 1, He-Man's missing, but 2, because this is their villain. This is their responsibility.
Yes.
The Bushido Code demanded. I'm like, yes. I always love when Leo throws that out there. Because again, it's funny because, some people will criticize the turtles because they're ninjas quoting this Bushido code. Because the Bushido, that's the code of the samurai. But I always love how they've always tied that into this. They've always tied it into a code of honor, and that's what the turtles. Yeah, they're trained in ninjutsu, but they have honor. They follow the code. They've always had that, especially with Leo. Leo walks and acts more like a samurai than he does a ninja sometimes. I love when they do that with him. I love the fact that, they pull that into this. Whenever they pull that in, I'm like, man, this is so cool. It's one of the reasons, drawing a blank on the bunny from this universe, from the turtle universe, who's the samurai.
Drawing a blank too.
Oh God, I can't remember his name, but there's a bunny who is in the Turtle universe who is an actual samurai. And I love seeing whenever he deals with the turtles. I've read some cool stories with him. So again, it's, and I'm going to drive myself nuts when I can't think of his name. But
so when you were doing that, I had to look it up. It's Usagi Yojimbo. It's Yojimbo. And forgive my name butchery. This was actually originally a Dark Horse comic book created by Stan Sakai. So it wasn't a Turtle universe creation originally. This is an example of another independent comic that got mashed into the Turtle universe. And that's not distracting from anything you were saying. It's just more giving the actual history of the character. That was also what was throwing me off when you said, "There's a bunny in the Turtle universe." I'm like, what are you talking about? So then I looked it up and I'm like, oh, this is so sweet, because there was a mashup. And it's another example of a mashup, which is leading to some of where this story goes, as far as talking about the turtles are kind of prone to this. Yes. So I'm sorry, please continue.
So well, and again, my dealing with him was turtle mashup, so that's why I say Turtle universe. So
sure,
he's got his whole own life to him. So that's, again, characters that fit in these mashups, do so well. And again, I was like, yeah, I'm down with that. So I loved how this story, again, this laid out what I was when I first think Turtles of Grayskull, this initial story is what I was thinking this whole series would be about. I was not even remotely thinking we're going to get any swerves. We're going to get any timey-wimey stuff. I was 100% thinking the Turtles found a way to come to eternity. They're going to help eternity.
Eternia.
Yeah, Eternia. Yeah. Come on.
What do you mean? You're like, come on. People could be screaming at this. I screwed up Usagi Yojimbo, which I know I'm probably still screwing it up. But we're going to try to get it right. I'm saying I haven't done major screw-ups in this. I have, but I'm trying to get it right. You're like eternity. It's Eternia. You watch the cartoon. What are you talking about? It was like in every cartoon, Eternia. You're not getting away with that one. Like that one, they gave us the name. The history piece of this is something when we get the Turtles telling the story. I really like that. You're right about the code and the Bushido code. And I like that it's their villains that are mashed up with Skeletor, but also we've got the champion missing. He-Man is missing, and that's the mystery of this. And it's an interesting issue because of the fact that He-Man's pretty much gone through the entire issue of this one. This first one, we get some establishment of the fact that something happened with He-Man, but we don't see him a lot in this. I actually really liked that choice, because we got to see all the characters from his universe, and we got to see the Turtles working with them and understand why they are there. And that added more to that Bushido code. We can't leave, because not only is our villain here and now things have been kicked up to 11, but they don't even have their champion here. And that just added a whole other level to this whole thing that I thought was really just an interesting way to lay out this storyline. I do love Mikey with He-Man's hair.
Yeah, the flowing locks. Yeah,
it was cool that it showed up on the cover. I do love seeing it here. They do a great job of keeping the turtle humor in this while keeping the sense of danger and the fact that there's going to be cool. These are cool combatants, and they each have strong fighting styles that bring to the table. That's the part of the Turtles that are endearing. And I think when talent gets that right and they understand that these are characters that are formidable but fun, and keeping the appropriate balance between those two, there's something magical about the Turtles when that happens. You don't want to make them too silly, because then you lose the whole point. But there is a silliness to them that works organically in all of this, that makes them like little brothers that you're hanging out with. And their interactions with each other are that way. And it works so well. They're fun. It's what they like about movies like Goonies and stuff like that, right? or Stranger Things, what works about that show. There's those elements that work in this, work really well with these characters because they're written with their age in mind, and it just works so well.
Yes. Oh, big time. 100% agree with that. And again, the usage of the humor, then the serious moments, there's a nice balance that happens in this because we get this ending part. And I love how, Donatello's like, hey, Master Splinter, Man-at-Arms, talk to us, and how he feels responsible for Adam and putting Adam in his risk and as He-Man, it got me wondering, did you ever feel that way about us? And you just get that. I love, again, the look on Splinter's face. And he's like, after the portal seals, every single day, my son, every single day. And you just see the emotion. And again, this is the face of a rat that we're talking about some really cool emotion with. I love how this looked. I love how this laid out.
Look at the detail in the brow when they got the close-up of him.
Yeah.
Like, that is sweet. Okay. When you actually see it curled up, you see him, you can see the eyes, reacting emotionally to it. I love when you see those details. When you do a zoom in shot like that, that's really cool. And to be able to convey that in an animal like that just works so well. Emotion is something that's really, really important to invest you in a story. And April with the comforting, sequence. I mean, this works really, really well off of this. Again, we're not seeing a lot of fisticuffs right now. What we've seen is a layout of we've got a lot of mess, but in this whole scenario, what we're seeing is just great story development, great character development. This is really important in a story. You can do like these mashups, and sometimes they're guilty when you do this kind of stuff of it being a great way to just create action page after action page after action page. Those are important. Don't get me wrong. I love those. But they mean more when you have emotional moments like this, that you're investing us even further in the characters, especially if it's the characters that you're visiting for the first time in a while because the mashup drew you in. So it's like, get me invested in them again. Make me feel like I know them. Make me feel like they're my friends. Then screw them. It just means something more.
I'll tell you, then we get this really awesome page with Man-at-Arms.
Yes.
100% they've got him down. Perfect. Just this battle cry, motivational speech about this. Basically, he's like, this is our house and we're taking it back now. We're going to open up a can of whoop ass and we're going to drop them hard. I was like, yes, I'm reading this out. Again, visually, you're seeing this. I'm cheering right along with him. You're looking, you're hearing what he's saying. You're just like, yes, this is right now fight time. And I loved, the story being told. And then you get that full page spread with all of the masters of the universe, including the Turtles. I was like, yes, I was hooping and hollering for this.
By the way, I want to be clear. I'm buying action figures. Like, no, I'm serious. I'm not joking. I mean, these, like, the figure sculpts that come out of this are super cool. Yeah. And it really is the artwork in this and the storyline that's motivating me. Like, I want these figures. I want, like, the various characters that they've made from this. So I already started looking on Amazon but
nice.
I want figures from this. I just think that they're really, really good. And there's something, you're right. This is an example of this just looking cool. I love the sequence when he's talking about the fact that we need this extra power. We need these, our friends and, these new friends that we're making and things like that. We need them because of what's happened with the enemies. And when he shows them behind the scenes, man, do they look imposing.
Yeah.
That's an example of balanced storytelling. Because now we're setting the stage for, okay, we've had some fun, but let's explain to you why you need to be worried for these people. And you need to be considering the fact that, yeah, we got a formidable mashup going on here, but the enemies have got the enemies are actually winning. And they are an imposing force on a level that's way beyond. This is Lord of the Rings kind of stuff that you're seeing here right now with this. And I really like that. In the sense that how can they overcome this? I like that feeling. Where a lot of times when we've seen these characters defeat these villains time and again, they start to lose something, if that makes sense, because you need to bring something else in to make them feel formidable again. This happened in a lot of the cartoons from this era. G.I. Joe, right? They kept introducing new characters, not just on the Joe team, but they introduced new characters onto Cobra. periodically, and Serpentor and stuff like that came in later on because of the fact that, okay, we needed to shake things up a little bit because it couldn't just be Cobra Commander again and again. And I really liked that this one, when you see the mashup and them going into battle, my gosh, that page where they got to force them together, we are masters of the universe, and you see them rushing into battle with Sorceress and the whole gang, or, with referencing Sorceress, I should say. We know that, I love that, Sorceress didn't want them doing this.
Yes.
They're not following the instructions. Or they didn't get the message, I should say, the way that they should be getting it.
Well, they just got a part of the message.
Yes.
And I love the fact that, even in Man-at-Arms' story, we can only assume it's she was calling out for help, that she needs us. So we're going to rally. And then you get the page, again, power of the page flip. You flip the page, it's like, no, Man-at-Arms, the message was just to keep away. Oh, and you're just like, oh, that is going to be good. And then, that page, you get to see the villains lining up. Yeah. You see the villains been jacked up. They've gotten some boost up from the dark magic that Skeletor is giving out. So I love the fact that we got the Turtles and the Masters coming in. We've got the villains all jacked up. This is going to be an epic battle. And I was so looking forward to this right here. Again, we had some great character story. We had some great story going on. I was loving it, but I was ready for some combat. I was ready for that by this point in time. So again, brilliant pacing on the story. Give us a cool story, get us locked in, and then say, okay, time for battle.
In the meantime, how cool is the character design of Sorceress?
Yeah.
I really have always loved the character design of that character. I think that this creative team has done a great job of highlighting and spotlighting it. I thought it was a really cool use of her in this particular sequence. And you're right. I was ready for the battle. Like when we see that for Eternia, give them a shell and them jumping in. I really like that if you take a look at that opposing force, they look like they're outgunned.
Yeah.
I mean, visually, they look like they're outgunned. Like this is kind of like, oh boy, we got a problem here. I do like the flying car. The flying convertible. I want it to be in that in the worst way. It just looks way cool.
Dude, you look at this page and you see, the Masters of the Universe villains jacked up. You see the Turtles. I love that we've got the evil turtle out there.
Yeah.
Again, that was a pure creation of the Splinter and Skeletor mashup. And then you got the variation on the Splinter there as well. I love that they did these little mashups of the villain characters as well. We're not just jacking up our heroes, we're getting our villains as well online. It was a really cool moment. I love this opening segue, and then you go right.
There's a Splinter looking one. Where's that at?
Well, okay, so if you look at the turtle, look at next to the turtle. If you look at the evil turtle, look at the next to that figure. I don't recognize him from anywhere.
No, what I'm saying is I don't see are you saying there's a rat?
Splinter? Oh, I meant Shredder. Sorry.
Okay, that's what it was.
Okay, I meant Shredder, not Splinter. Sorry about that.
That's what threw me off. I was like, sitting there, I'm like, am I missing a rat here that I didn't see? I was like, no.
Okay, sorry about that.
You mean Shredder? Yeah. Shredder's sweet.
Yeah, this whatever this variation on Shredder is, that's another one that's a cool looking villain.
Yeah, and Shredder's cool on his own, but I like the idea of evolution and this story needed them to feel big enough that the absence of He-Man was going to already make you feel like they were in danger, and yet the team's holding their own. We've got a good battle going here. I mean, they're doing a good job, but you do feel like they're up against something that is really a struggle.
Well, and that was the cool part of the inner monologue overlaying on it.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing the heroes fight. We're seeing the heroes kick some butt, and in the inner dialogue, and these are the moments when heroes and villains collide and worlds perfectly mesh and things seem like they're just nicely about to tie up. That's when it all goes wrong. And I loved how that little inner dialogue led to the big giant swerve.
Yes.
And I thought that, again, was absolutely brilliant on how they did that. Because, again, this is something that I read and then I had to go back and immediately reread going, wait, what did I just read? Holy crud. Because the inner dialogue talking about how this is when everything falls apart. because Skeletor and Kang decide to unleash their ultimate weapon. This great master plan they had turns out to be evil He-Man, who was suspended in the goo and transformed. Only problem with that is evil He-Man kills everyone.
Yes.
And I was like, I read that page. I probably reread that page like 3 or 4 times before you finally really understand everything that happened here. Because you start seeing, because initially you see Kang's head fly, then you see Splinter's skull and this and body parts, and then I saw Orko's hat. I'm like, he attacked everybody.
Yeah.
He didn't just attack the villains. Like, oh my God. And that's when you realize exactly what happens. And then in the final pages where Adam returns, and that last page of Adam is there dealing with the fact that he just slaughtered everybody. I'm just like, oh my God, this is brilliant.
And don't ignore Sorceress. Because if you take a look at her over to the left, I really love that close-up of her. She's watching this unfold. This was the brilliant part about having her where she was locked up, is the fact that she's watching this battle play out, and you're getting to see that reaction in her eyes. The thing I loved was not only the tears in her eyes, I love the detail that she is so choked up, it's coming out of her nose. Yeah. I mean, and I'm saying that very seriously. Like, we're seeing somebody who has gone through seeing something so destructive that, like, she's just overwhelmed with emotion. Yeah. That was a really strong choice, because you don't need to show us all the carnage. And it's an interesting example of making the strategic choice to give us enough establishment of just how far this is going, and then let your mind fill in the blanks. This was done very cleverly. And what we see going on behind Sorcerer's eyes is going to be far worse than anything they could have drawn. Yes. And that's the important part about understanding, like, that balance. And boy, was this just a brilliant way of doing it. I'm with you on the Adam change back, and it's subtle. The way that it's done in a very small portion of it. And I love that the larger part of the carnage takes up more of the page. It's more subdued and smaller. Like, at this point in time, all he's left with is, and I love that it's like gray toned.
Yeah.
You just see these dead bodies, and there's just so many of them that even identifying them right now would be an overwhelming task. Then we get the reveal of the timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
With Renette, and I'm probably butchering Renette Tilly, the apprentice timstress. I love characters like this, where she is too late. She's there, and she's like, okay, these people should never meet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the right time to show up in. Doctor Who this past season explored something like this, where they were trying to get back to a certain time to prevent things from happening. And I love that she's not getting to the right spot. She's showing up, she gets put into prison, and the whole situation is, I got to keep the Turtles away from He-Man. Yeah. If I can keep them away from his world, we can prevent this from happening again. And the capstone of the story is him walking out, because they're going to be in this gladiator arena against these Triceratops-like people. And it's like, okay, everything's good so far. It's the Turtles versus them. And then here comes He-Man. It's like, no, these guys can't become friends. That's when everything goes wrong. It's the one catalyst. And I just love that we're taken back in time, knowing where this can go. Like, if these guys get together, He-Man's going to kill everybody.
Yep.
So let's make sure that this does not happen at all. And I love that. I love that we've seen the carnage first. We've seen the destruction first. Now we're seeing the quest to prevent it. And I love that. I mean, it's just really, really an interesting way to do this story. Starting at the end, then going back to the beginning was just a really, really good choice.
And one of the things, again, when they introduced Renette in this, I had no idea who she was.
I didn't either.
But she's been in different Turtle stories, obviously, because the Turtles knew who she was, and, you see Raph's got a little bit of a thing. No, Mikey's got a little bit of thing for her because he's got the heart around it. Oh, hi, Renette. So, she's been involved in their stories. And I love that, it took me like half a heartbeat to realize, okay, she's a turtle. she's a turtle part of the story. She's not a master of the universe. Because again, when first hit the ground, I'm like, is she a master? No, I don't remember this character at all. I'm like, oh, okay, she's a turtle. Okay. And then they go right into that, where the turtles are in this intergalactic, gladiator arena fighting Triceratops. And you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be kind of cool. Once again, another brilliant swerve. You get the first swerve of He-Man turning evil, slaughtering everybody. And then you get the second one. Oh, yeah, He-Man walks in again. I'm like, oh, this is a great way to end this issue off with two powerful swerves. And again, you get a really cool He-Man strutting in moment, setting up for the next issue. I was 100% so locked in on this story. I was like, yes, this is awesome.
So she appeared in season 3 and in season 4 of one of the Turtles series, animated series. So she actually comes from that. So this is an example of them pulling from all media with them. And I'm sure that then that led to her coming over into the comics and stuff like that as well. But this is a character who does have a rich history. And yes, right from the Turtles. It was Turtles in Time was actually the name of the episode, it looks like. I actually want to see it now just because of that. But I just want to look it up and kind of see what is her history? And no, she been around. So
yeah, she's a turtle. Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. So I'm anxious to see more and learn more about this character because she was a great way for this to be kind of introduced. Speaking of covers, issue number 2's cover is spectacular.
Oh my God, this is brilliant.
Yeah. I love when they do the scope and scale that we've got major figures in the background of it. Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, people like that are sitting in the background. But in the foreground, we've got, again, this mashup. They really love Mikey with the wig. And I do too. Like, yes. I love that he's in the foreground just chilling. It works really, really well in this. I love the power sword. One of the things that always fascinated me about He-Man, and it's something, when he changes and I have the power and he's holding up the sword. I really like the energy popping out of the sword, just this sense of that sword means something. It's something that I think I'm glad that they're spotlighting and highlighting in this because it's something that always stood out to me.
Yeah, and like with He-Man, when they first introduced the action figures, there wasn't any of that transformation from Adam or any of that stuff. That was created for the cartoon.
Yeah.
He was just a guy who was the masters of the universe, super powerful, strong, and weaponry, and fought the bad guys, So I love the fact that the cartoon changed everything around to make the transformation. And to the point where it's now just accepted on the power. And it's a really cool little part of a story that was built in the cartoon. It's kind of like, how Harley Quinn was built in the cartoon and has become such an epic member of the Bat family. Yeah. I love that they're able to embrace stuff that came from,
other media
that came from there, and make it all one. It's absolutely wonderful.
But sometimes evolve it to make it appropriate for the other media.
Yeah.
I think that's something that works real well, too. Did Castle Grayskull, I don't know if you remember this, was Castle Grayskull part of the toy set first, or was it part of the cartoon first?
Okay, so Castle Grayskull was always part of the toy line.
Right from the release of the toy line was?
Beginning. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure the Sorceress was also part of...
Did they know about the cartoon already? No. Did they intend on making it a cartoon to establish?
I'm not 100% certain. To me, the toys came out before the cartoon, I thought. And I thought the cartoon came out to promote the toys.
Right. But what I'm saying is, did they always have the intention of a... So I'm guessing which one came first.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm guessing they were already working on the cartoon when they were putting out the toy line. It's a good question because the animated series went 1983 and the toy line, I guess, was 1982. So I'm assuming when they started coming up with this action figure idea, they started working pretty quickly on putting together a cartoon to go along with it as a promotional piece. It just shows an interesting. That's where toys were at that time. Super cool, actually super cool.
Because I remember also Orko wasn't in the original toy line,
right? That was a cartoon creation, right?
That to get the Orko action figure, I remember you had to get they cut the box things tops off and send it in and this and that. You had to do something. They weren't selling the toy at all. If you wanted the special Orko, you had to fill out this form and you had to send in box tops or something like that.
And a finger too, right? Didn't you have to send one of your fingers in order to get Orko? Yeah. That was crazy, the stuff we had to do in order to get, because Boba Fett was one of those too.
Yeah.
And Bosk was another one that you got from the Star Wars end of things. I always loved that kind of stuff. As far as being able to mail in, I didn't get to do it for every line that I liked, but when you got that weird action figure, Duke was one for G.I. Joe, wasn't he originally? Yes. Duke
originally Duke. Yeah, originally Duke was not an action figure, and
but he was a mail order one, wasn't he? Originally, yeah. And then you could eventually buy him in the store, but it was kind of a cool. I like stuff like that. It just kind of gives you this sense of, I don't know, it was geeky to get that stuff in the mail. It was like, wait, we open up that package, it was like Christmas. It was super cool. This, back to the cover, one more piece. First of all, I love that floating structure, but this Castle Grayskull that they've drawn here, whew,
yeah,
that's a good looking Castle Grayskull too. I love when the artwork draws my eye to look at the background details, background characters as well, and really enjoy that. This is a dynamic cover. Fishing right back into this crazy story now, because she is in this situation where she's like, great. We're reliving this time loop. And I like that we've got a time loop going on. So I'm trying to get us out of this. And every time I'm trying to pull us out, we keep getting pulled back in. I've got to try and do some different things. And I like that she's really taking a strong role in trying to do what she can to separate them, because it's right out of the gate, they're back in a battle together again. And, they haven't met yet, but they've got a reason now to team up, because circumstances are, it's either they team up or they're going to get trounced.
Yeah.
And I love that He-Man's just standing there at first and they're waiting for him to do something. And he's like, Earth and English. I understand, because I love how they're throwing out like a Conan reference in the beginning, just because they see him with the sword. That was really cool. I love when they do geeky stuff like that. But I like how he's sitting there. He said, I understand you. I was just waiting for the right moment to do this. That was sweet. One-handed. He flipped that bad boy over one-handed. That was a great He-Man moment.
Oh, dude, that was an awesome He-Man moment. And again, we're throwing out the Conan moments, of course, by Crom.
Yes.
You got to throw out the Crom in there. And I was like, yes. But when he flips it, I love just them saying, I'm a turtle trained in ninjutsu by a mutant rat, and I'm not sure I've ever seen something quite that cool. That is the line of the day right there. And again, of course, it's Mikey saying the line. It was absolutely outstanding. I love. That was Donatello who said that. Sorry. Wasn't Mikey, but again, line of the comic, line of the day right there. Because I completely agree with him. That was absolutely epic.
He-Man catches himself because he's relating to these guys, and I get it. He's a similar age, so they're like sitting here. It's one of the reasons my dad calls me irresponsible, and I like that he's like, I can relate to that. And he was like, I could when I was younger. Yeah. The dialogue piece over there, you start to see, why are these guys becoming friends so quickly? Because they can relate. And that's something that I like, that establishment pretty quickly. It's like, oh yeah, he is Prince Adam, and there would be something to this. So that was a really cool choice. There's an example of, you can take some clever dialogue and do some things really quickly that cut through a lot of the nonsense and go, these are why these guys should just get along. They should be buddies. They just kind of get each other.
They should be friends. And I'm glad, one thing I am glad, this comic didn't do the standard, thing where the heroes meet up and fight and then realize, we're both good guys.
Yeah.
They didn't do that with this one, and it fits so perfectly.
You know what would have stunk? If they had He-Man kill everybody.
Right. That's good.
You're like, I'm glad they didn't do the standard where they fought each other. I'm like, no, He-Man killed everybody. It's like, no, I know what you mean. Like they're like they're just instantly adversaries for no reason. Yeah. He drank some bad Kool-Aid and killed everybody. So that part's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. He gets a pass.
Listen, Kool-Aid is one of those things. If it's not mixed properly, it's going to cause some problems.
Yeah.
So I completely
turn into a homicidal maniac, I believe is the
that's exactly right.
The safety.
Yeah, but that's not the same as a conflict. That's a tummy ache. We'll let that pass.
Yeah. Now, I loved when the one Triceratops, they're already jacked up, goes, "Oh no, I'm gonna go for a bonus," and beefs himself up even more. And again, brilliant story because he's attacking He-Man, he's struggling, and you're thinking, okay, this is gonna be another one of those epic battles where the Turtles and He-Man have to do a tag team combo to take him down. Oh no, just Donatello goes boop and pushes the button and turns off the accelerant. I'm like, okay, and he's like back down to normal. And then He-Man one punch knocks him out. I love that they did that with this story. Again,
Yes.
funny moment, and I love then the crowd reacts going, this stinks. Because I know if I was sitting in that audience, I'd want to see some epic fighting. And we really just saw 2-3 punches and the fight's over. Like, come on, this is a Mike Tyson fight going, did I just spend that much money for a pay-per-view and have him knock him out in under 10 seconds? I don't like this. I love the fact that they get that kind of crowd reaction.
Well, the crowd's kind of like not having it. They're like, get Monstroid out there.
Yeah.
And He-Man's like, you don't ever want to know what Monstroid is. And, they're running through the bottom to try and get away, and we get to see what Monstroid is.
Yeah, that's a pretty nasty monster there.
Yeah. That's another example of scale, where you get to see just how big Monstroid is in comparison. And I love the guy riding on top of Monstroid. That's got to be a great job.
Well, yes, it'd be probably cool, but you know what? I think it'd be hard to control Monstroid. I think there's a good chance Monstroid is going to kill him just as much as he's going to kill anybody else.
You think so?
I think I'd rather watch the guy ride Monstroid than be the guy riding Monstroid, personally. That's just my take.
He does survive in this. I just want to point out. Yeah. Like when they escape, he's still proudly on top of Monstroid.
Okay, yeah, there he is. I see.
It's not a bad gig. I'm just saying. He gets the ringside seat to a lot of nonsense, and he seems to be just fine.
It'd be a fun job. I still think I'd rather not be the guy riding Monstroid.
Okay.
I think I'd rather be watching the guy ride Monstroid.
You want to be in the audience.
I want to be in
the audience was pretty unhappy though, and the guy riding Monstroid, I think he is like they like him. They were cheering for him as much as Monstroid. Yeah. Well, I don't know. We don't know what his name is, so yeah. I'm not sure the people do.
He's one of those Triceratops dudes.
Yeah, so. Yeah. But this is a good chance for them to get away, and we get to see her, with Renette. Is it? I want to watch. See, now I want to watch the animated series to understand how to pronounce her first name.
Yeah.
So I want to see what's going on there. They get to escape in this really cool vehicle. And I like how they did all the banter earlier on about driving and the fact that they weren't old enough to drive. He-Man's like, well, I can drive, I can handle that type of piece. And then, and he's showing up and they're like, I play video games. I think I'm going to be okay on this one. I loved that kind of piece because that's definitely par for the course with the Turtles is that aspect of their relationship. That place was really cool. Her telling He-Man like really early on, like, listen, we've got to cut through the nonsense right now and cut to the chase. You need to tell them your secret. Like, let's get your secret out there right now because we need to have some serious talks about some next level stuff. And I like that it made sense in the context of this story that she was pushing this because she's the only one right now that really, I think, fully understands this whole timey-wimey thing that's going on. Yeah. And she's got to get them on a course of understanding. Like, listen, you guys need to understand. You can't keep heading down the path you are right now because it leads to one spot. And that's He-Man chopping everybody up. So let's bring that down to speed. And the part when Adam becomes Adam again, he's a teenager. He's a blonde guy inside a blonde guy. It does, when you see him as Adam, it does beg the question. It goes back to the whole Superman with the glasses thing. How do they not know?
Yeah, it's always been a thing. But again, how do you not know Superman?
I love it. And by the way, I want to be clear. I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it.
No, we're both in agreement here of the how do they not know, but we love the fact that, and again, I love the fact that it's his mom who figured it out, but not the dad.
And not Skeletor.
Yeah, not Skeletor either, but it's, yeah. And Man-at-Arms knows, but Tila doesn't know.
Yeah.
And there's certain people who know, certain people who don't know, though I want to say in the most recent Masters of the Universe comic book universe, everybody knows that Adam is He-Man. I thought I thought there was a big reveal that happened, but I'm not 100% certain on this one. So
I don't know.
it's been a while since I've read Masters of the Universe comic book, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this is making me want to read both, like
Yes.
Ninja Turtles and Masters of the Universe, just to kind of bring up to speed.
Dude,
I've read a lot of the stuff I've read has been crossover stuff. You know, it's stuff. It's actually stuff you and during our tenure of Raging Bullets, when the Masters of the Universe stuff was crossing over into the DC stuff quite a bit. I was reading, and same thing with the Turtles and all that. I was reading more of it that way, just because of where a majority of my reading was. This is leading me now to I'd like to read more of what are the books that I missed that have more storyline, and what is considered canon, and is I guess the question, is there a canon? I mean, what does that look like? I know with the Turtles there is, but I'd like to know a little bit more about what that looks like with Masters of the Universe and kind of see that piece, because this has me. I want more, just from reading this, which is kind of cool. I do like that this is, again, this story is being told out of sequence in all the right ways. So we keep jumping back, as far as, okay, how did you get here? He-Man filled in his blanks. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are filling in their blanks as far as what happened right now that got them in that whole situation.
Well, one of the things I love is that they're filling in on how they got together. Mm-hmm. But again, this is different than the last time.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a quantum point in there that the Turtles and He-Man have to meet.
Right.
So we stopped the one way. Now we're going to create another way. So it's just like the universe keeps bringing these two together. So the problem is you just got to avoid the reality, avoid the factor that when He-Man falls in the goop, he turns evil and kills everybody.
Yeah.
So
this is Final Destination kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something I thought was a really cool way to handle this, in that we have a whole nother swerve as to how the Turtles got in space, how He-Man got there, how these two are now together. So now you've got, Renette is going to have to do her timey-wimey stuff and see if we can keep them separate so the universe doesn't crumble.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I do like that as He-Man's telling his story, he's referencing the sorceress and, the message about the collector and Skeletor and trying to, follow that piece, but also his worry about his mom. And there was something that the Turtles key in on. And I like that this is something that does play out later, but those little attentions to detail I thought were something that was really, really important in all of this. I really love the use of paneling in this, where we do these close-up shots during the storytelling of the narrator.
Yeah.
But then we get these creative panels that are organically, I think it just made a good use of that background color kind of flowing through the pages. I really enjoyed, in the case of like when we get to Renette or Renee or whatever her pronunciation is, when you get to her storytelling there, I like that you get to see them in these little bubbles.
Yeah.
They're very reminiscent of like little time bubbles that are going on where she's filling in her own perspective. The reason why I like it so much, though, is those close-up shots of their faces give a sense of emotion and personality of the character and the narrator telling the story. And I always love that. I mean, this was really cleverly laid out. He's very good at the
layering effect and all that. Yeah. And again, it's, you sit there and I'm just staring at this artwork going, this is absolutely, it's
beautiful.
There's so much awesome, on just the way this looks. And I love as she's briefing them on the story, telling them what happens, how Adam goes evil, kills everybody. I do love the fact that they show the bubble of Adam back.
Yes.
And again, it's showing all of that. And then you flip the page and you see Adam with the turtles in the van, like, hi guys. Yeah. Sorry, I killed you before, that for me was just like that's got to be a very uncomfortable car to be in right now.
Well, and he doesn't know that he did that. I mean, other than the fact that she's told the story.
Right.
So he hasn't lived all of that yet. But it sets up a whole scenario of there's motivation for these guys to say, okay, we got to get away from each other. We can't
keep them separate.
Yeah. Well, keep their entire universes separate. It's not just them being separate. The Turtles need to not interact with Adam's people, and Adam needs to not interact with their people. It's going to be an interesting sort of piece that's over there. So it adds a whole big problem when he shows up in Manhattan.
Yeah.
In New York, and the first thing he does is he's encountering some of their people.
Rocksteady and Bebop, baby.
Yep.
I love the fact that he rocked. Well, first off, I do love the fact that he's in New York City and he goes, Mom always said you were beautiful. because his mother is from Earth.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they bring that in, just to, again, remind everybody, hey, the story is mom was an Earth astronaut who went through some time, went through some bubble, whatever vortex thingy, and popped up in Eternia. I keep saying eternity.
You
Sorry.
do.
Yeah. Popped up in Eternia and fell in love with the king, and they got married and they had little Adam. I love the fact that we still have that, and I, again, love that Adam sees them, boogies, and gets away. But as you see Adam interacting with, Turtles people, you see, Mikey dropping a little note to the king and queen.
That was cool. So
with
cool.
Their people. I was like, and again, completely fit. And I
Yes.
love the fact that the turtles are walking around Eternia and no one thinks it's weird. There's talking turtles.
I like that they notice it.
Yeah.
This place is weird.
They're not alarmed by us. This is awesome.
Yeah. That part is awesome. Because they said attorney is crazy. And I'm like, hey, weird's not the right word. It's crazy. So I see the attraction. Like, why wouldn't you want to hang out more?
Oh, God, yeah. Again, one of the big things, they love, being heroes, but they do miss the fact that they're limited on who they can interact with. We've seen that time and time again in different stories. And when they get the opportunity to interact with more people, it's, they enjoy it.
I love when artists have fun.
Yeah.
When He-Man transforms and you get to see Casey Jones in the sword, that's gotta be fun. You're sitting there like, this is a cool opportunity. And I got to imagine, like, he's hoping that, people are going to notice that. We did. It's cool. It's so wacky cool.
100% saw that.
I was geeking out like crazy. Like, you could have blatantly had him there. I love when an artist is like, yeah, I could. But what about if we did this? And yeah, it's way cooler to do what he did because the sword's awesome. And to add that part of he's showing up in the reflection, what a good choice.
Well, and the way they did it, they got the first panel, he's running back. You see the headset, the glasses, and the hat from Rocksteady and Bebop. Then you get the dialogue. You brought a freaking sword, magical sword, to my town.
Yeah.
And then you see the reflection in the sword. Because that's how when I read this, that's exactly how I saw that. I saw the dialogue, and then right next to the dialogue is where you see the reflection, like, oh, that's Casey. That's nice.
Yeah.
And then when you finally do get confirmation that's Casey, you're like, yes, that is so cool. That is so awesome.
When you finally get confirmation, I had confirmation at the doggone sword. He's right there. The pacing of flipping between He-Man and the Turtles is really good because that's an example of where you're putting a mini cliffhanger in the middle of the book. I love that kind of stuff. Because it makes you anticipate the other pages. Like, okay, I want to keep going. And then we get to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles side of all this piece. And it does this convergence of both of them are getting dropped into the respective worlds of, so they're being put into the He-Man's world. Everything is playing out the way that we've seen before, which is really problematic.
Yeah. Only advantage they have this time is they know what happens.
Yeah.
They know Adam, and we'll see how they explain it out, how they explain things away. If they're, and again, you've got, Man-at-Arms and Tila sitting there catching the turtles after they broke into the king and queen's home, and you've got Casey. But I do like the fact that Casey's like, hey, you're going to go see my friend Splinter. So Casey's bringing in Splinter now here's the point where we could get a hero fight, where each of the different heroes fight because they don't want to have that interaction. So next issue, we may get that hero fight. I hope we don't. But again, I've loved this story so far. I'm just going to hang back and enjoy it even more. And I love the fact that, Renette gets back in time, back to when Splinter is still a rat. He's still back in feudal Japan, Japan with his master. He isn't Master Splinter in it right now. So right there, that's some serious timey-wimey stuff that she could really mess things up if she's not careful. So that, again, if Splinter never gets to America, never falls in the goop with the Turtles, we don't have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles anymore.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that can happen in the next two issues that I am very excited for and looking forward to what happens next.
This has been fun so far. Really, really fun.
One last quick thing. Again, we talked before about the character designs by Freddie. This one opens up with the Mikey character design.
Yeah.
And once again, you see the flowing locks. You see I absolutely love these things that we get in there. This is some really cool extra stuff that you get at the end of the book that I'm so glad we get. And
the Tila one's sweet too.
Yeah,
that's in there. I mean, those extras. I really appreciate when comic companies really recognize the need to give you that type of thing. And with something as special as this, where you're mashing up characters, what you want to see is like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And that's something that's it's got to be fun making this come to life. And I'm so glad that we finally got this.
And then the cover art, the cover process that they show, and that was another neat page to add on the back of this. So
seeing it in its various stages.
Yeah.
RagingBullets.com is our show website, and that feeds into our Facebook fan page, also feeds into X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. We are also have an amazing Facebook group community, and I want to thank everyone that posts there. Actually, just this week, our last episode, there's a little problem with the audio file, and I really appreciate the fact that our team over there started posting and saying, hey, we got a little bit of a problem, Houston. Also, this is where I get all my news, blog posts, articles. There's been a lot of stuff going on in the world of comics and related pop culture that our team over there has been just posting regularly. I get all my news there first. Because I just feel like the people who listen to this show have a lot in common with me. So a lot of times if they're interested in it, I'm like, oh, I'm finding that I'm interested in this too. So thank you very much to everyone that posts over there regularly. Just interesting commentary that's going on. If you have comments on any of our podcast episodes, please feel free to post over there. I do check them to check and see what people are saying. That's like I said, that's how I knew that there was a problem with our past episode. So we did do a re-release of that episode. The About Us section of our show website is where you can find out how to connect with us on social media and gaming platforms. I'm actually going to be doing an update this week on some of that too, for other ways for you to be able to connect. And then you can find me every other week on Is It Jaws, which is a film review podcast. Paul Spataro has been kind enough to invite me to be a co-host over there. And we have a lot of special guests coming on as we do film reviews. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to check us out over at Is It Jaws. Sponsoring us this episode once again is DCB Service at InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
Remember, I did a simple search of turtles on DCBS, and not only are there multiple comic books associated with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as well as Turtles of Grayskull, but we have action figures. Turtles of Grayskull action figures, standard Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and all the variations line, including the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Universal Monsters, where you can get a really cool figure of Splinter as Van Helsing and Shredder as Dracula. So thank you, DCBS.
I'm a big fan of compendiums, and over at InStockTrades.com, if you do a search for a Teenage Mutant Compendium, you'll see what they have in stock right now for these wonderful compendium volumes. They're $150 regularly, 35% off, only $97.50. They also have the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Omnibus hardcover. This is $100 regularly, 35% off, only $65. There are also smaller collections, and there's the Art of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's all kinds of really cool books that are available over at InStockTrades.com. So if you're a Turtles fan and looking for things that match your budget, there's a lot of opportunities. I'm looking at books starting at $12.99 straight on up. So there's great ways if you're looking for more reading to be able to get them at a discount. And I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Jim, our next episode, we're going to be back and wrap up with issues 3 and 4 of Turtles of Grayskull, and then we're jumping on to our little summer of Superman. We're going to be taking a look at the Superwoman storyline and getting ready. We're going to be doing an episode on the film as well. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
Raging Bullets, a podcast for comic fans on the internet.
Download or stream it now.
Hosted by the legendary Sean and Jim. Spoilers are ahead.
Let's talk some comics now.
The Raging Bullet Show. Let's go.